run colder. I lead it, Persian, Steve, and Mystic. Whole squad locked in, we go ballistic. Game time grind, it's a takeover. Whistle get blown, we break the quota. From the first hot take to the closer. This our season now. Move over. Clock hit zero, that's pre-show pressure. 3 deep crew, that full court measure. I lead a Persian, flame on the mic, breaking down plays like he called that hike. Steve with the stats, the ice in the vein. Sees every route, every yard, every lane. Mystic calling future, seeing through smoke. Predictions hit hard like a safety stroke. Game time grind, it's a takeover. Run, let's go up, lights run colder. I lead the Persian, Steve, and Mystic. Whole squad locked in, we go ballistic. Game time grind, it's a takeover. Whistle get blown, we break the quota. From the first hot take to the closer. This our season now. Move over. Line 'em up. Who on heat? Who on heat? Saturday legends on the midweek scene. Who on heat? Kick off, talk till the sun goes down. New kings here, that's a title bout. Game time grind, it's a takeover. Run, let's go up, lights run colder. I lead the Persian, Steve, and Mystic. Whole squad locked in, we go ballistic. Game time grind, it's a takeover. Whistle get blown, we break the quota. Game time grind, say the name louder. This our season now. Full power.
Good morning, good day, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode exclusively here on 4th and 10 New Game Time Grind, followed by my host, Steve Mystic. What's up, man? We missed you in the last exclusive episode, so we're glad to have you. But before we get started, before we get into this, before that frozen stare of Steve goes away, make sure you hit the like button. Subscribe if you're brand new. Turn on the notification bell, right? We are, I want to say, less than 15 subscribers away from our goal, right? Before we have a giveaway. So I cannot wait for that. We got really very, very close. Appreciate everybody that watched our last exclusive episode where we broke down the Miami Hurricanes. It was a banger. Had a lot of fun with Steve. A lot of great information there. Definitely check out that episode. Today, we're going to be breaking down the Longhorns, though, right? The Longhorns, Texas Longhorns, and for my buddy Mike, Hook 'em Horns, right? Hook 'em Horns, definitely. So, yeah, we're going to break it down. But I got something special. You know what? I've been getting this feedback that some people think that all I want to do is hype up the Buckeyes. And one day I would wear a South Florida hat here on the show. And with that ado, yeah, I'll wear a University of South Florida hat for today.
Turn it up. Tampa in the building. Steve walking like what? New week, new smoke. College crowd on go. Steve talking that talk. Make a mascot fold.
Yeah, just for you, Steve. I'm going to wear this hat today. So how's it going, gentlemen? How's everything?
What's going on? You know, man. Shout out to you guys for holding it down. Obviously, been a little busy, but I'm back now. Excited for this this Texas Longhorn breakdown. I think there'll be some interesting tidbits from all of us, so super excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
Been a wonderful,
it's funny, real quick. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. It's funny. We're breaking down the Longhorns, and I'm sitting here wearing a Bulls hat. Just realized it. Hey, it's all right. A lot of people are like, bro, how can you wear a different team than your Buckeye hat, right? Well, I'm sorry. Everybody wants to call, University of South Florida, Ohio State South. So At least I'm repping a former Buckeye still, one way or another.
It's
That's
funny.
why
It's almost like he lost a bad bet, folks. A bad bet. No, I'm just kidding.
it was-
What's going on?
I live in Florida, first of all, and if I have to root for a non-Ohio State team, obviously, that's in Florida. There's only one Florida team I'm going to root for, and that's this team, because I refuse to root for anyone else in the state. So,
some of us isn't afraid to recognize USF. Thank you very much, Mystic.
Sorry, you're breaking up there. I couldn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mystic. I didn't mean to cut you off originally. Sorry. Go ahead. What you got?
No, I'm chill, man. I'm happy to be back and ready to talk some ball and throw some shots at Steve. No, I'm just kidding.
We can throw shots at Steve. So how's it going, Steve? How was your weekend?
Actually, really good. Had a baby shower for my my brother, so fun family stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, pretty much same here. Got some stuff done around the house. Got more stuff I got to do around the house. If you guys don't know, by the time you're probably seeing this video, I'm going to be halfway across the country, headed to Cali. Should be in Cali probably by the time you see this video. So I'll be in Los Angeles. So I'm going to be there for about 7 days almost. 5 or 6 days, actually. 5 or 6 days, probably. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm probably going to go see Masters of the Universe. That's going to be a lot of fun. So can't wait to see that, to be honest.
Good movie, saw it today.
Oh, don't tell me. Don't you dare ruin it. Don't you dare ruin it. I've heard some things that people are upset about. I have to see how it's done. But you're saying it's a good movie, so okay.
The only people that have the right to complain are the people who grew up as little kids back in the 70s, the 80s, when that was a cartoon originally. Those are the people who get a chance to.
So I'm the only one here that gets to complain.
That's what I'm saying. Like us nowadays, man. Like we didn't get to watch that cartoon, and it's pretty dang spot on from the cartoon. Is all I'll say.
Well, I did get to watch the cartoon. I love the cartoon, but it's crazy that you say that, Ollie, because everybody I know who's seen it absolutely loves it. My brother's best friend
100%.
messaged him and was
Just
like,
don't ruin the story for me. You can talk about it, just don't ruin the story, because I wanna experience
I don't know
it.
the story, but all he said was, "Are you going to see the movie tonight?" My brother's like, "No." He's like, "Well, why are you wasting your fucking life away?"
Yeah.
Damn.
It must be that good then. All right. Well, that's good to hear. Good stuff to hear. Well, anybody got anything else before, or should we just jump right into it?
Let's get her going.
Let's
Right
get it
into the
going.
deep end.
Right into the deep end. That's what she said. All right, let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. The 2026 Texas Longhorns. Is it a rebuild? I'm going to say no. It's more like a reload. The program under Steve Sarkisian, it's going to be it's basically a whole nother year of top talent reload. That's essentially what we're seeing from the Texas Longhorns. The Longhorns went 10-3 last year in the SEC in 2025, finishing number 12 in the final AP poll. But the season still felt short of expectations because they missed the college football playoff. I'm going to tell you straight up, I think Texas got screwed. I think they got screwed out of the playoffs. I'm going to talk a little bit more about why they got screwed in the next segment that we're going to talk about. But statistically, Texas was pretty solid, in my opinion. They weren't necessarily explosive in the beginning, right? I'll give you that. Maybe the first half of the season didn't start out exactly the way that they wanted, but they still won a crap ton of games. And the last 7 games, I'm going to tell you, were bangers. They were really on fire at that point. Texas was solid enough. They had 30.5 points per game that they were able to produce, 396 total yards, 137.8 rushing yards per game, while the defense allowed only 20.3 points per game. and 104.2 rushing yards per game, right? So the defense was pretty solid. Offense was pretty solid. Overall, Texas, in the nutshell, they were not bad last season. And I really still think they got screwed out of the college football playoff, which we'll talk about here in a moment. What do you guys think initially of what Texas was able to do last year? And, what your initial thoughts, without giving too much detail, of the team now? What do you guys think?
Personally, I'm with you. So, obviously, we'll talk more when we get there, but I'm with you on them not making the playoff. Obviously, that was me before understanding how the playoff, came to be. But again, a really good team last year, really peaking at the end of the season. I think it started the expectations. I think the expectations of Arch Manning kind of slowed this team in a sense early, but obviously they got going.
Mm-hmm.
The Florida loss really doesn't look good. All right, things of that such. I think you see this team learn. Obviously, Arch Manning, some of the guys that returned, obviously they lost some pieces, right? But I think you see the core of those younger guys really learn from kind of that Florida loss, losing to Georgia last year, kind of those shortcomings that kind of put them in that situation to be on the outside looking in, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I agree with you. And, look, listen, that Florida loss did not look pretty. And probably that's ultimately what hurt them the most, to be honest. Because if they won that game, I'm going to tell you right now, I think they were for sure in the college football playoff at that point. But bad losses happen to teams, even the best of teams. Memory serves me right. There was a Buckeye team that went over to Iowa and got their ass kicked by some Hawkeyes one year. Unexpectedly.
It happens.
It happens, right? It really happens to the best of teams. So I just kind of think that along with the Florida loss and some of the issues that they had to deal with initially, which I'm going to get into a little bit more as we break this team down, I think that's what really contributed to them not making the playoffs. However, I still thought they were well deserving over some of the other teams that did make the playoffs. So we'll definitely get into that. Steve, did you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I don't want to get too much into the overall thing, but I mean, they're a team that had a lot of promise last year. Like you brought up, the last 7 games, they really started to get their crap together. I mean, again, we'll talk about it more when we start breaking down the individual units and stuff, but you could tell once a certain individual started to feel comfortable and get in his stride, the team as a whole started ranking to the right way and getting things where it needed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Well, let's get into it, Steve. The whole thing starts with Arch Manning, right? That's what the whole thing with Texas starts. With Arch Manning, he's back after throwing 3,163 yards, 26 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, adding he finished with 78 QBR rating, and showing late season growth as a true dual threat leader, right? The last 7 games, I would say that there was no better quarterback in the country than Arch Manning in the last 7 games, right? He was that good. He was on fire. The offense around him is much deeper now. Texas added major transfer help, including Cam Coleman at wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers available in the transfer portal. Hollywood Smothers at running back, Raleek Brown, while returning young weapons like Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, Khalil Lockett, Michael Terry III, Derek Cooper, James Simon, and 5-star quarterback, dual threat quarterback, Dia Bell is in the building as well, right? So they have talent. Even if their star quarterback goes down, they got another guy in the making. So watch out for Dia Bell. That gives Sarkisian the type of personnel he wants. vertical speed outside, multiple backs who can stress linebackers enough to basically in an explosive formation is really what I'm looking for, right? That's what he can do with that type of personnel. He can keep defenses off of Arch Manning because they got more things to worry about. That's kind of where I'm at with this offense. Like I said, they're much deeper, more explosive, speed. He has a lot of weapons. What do you think, Mystic? Like, what are your thoughts? Initially with the skill positions and on the offensive side.
Well, I don't know if you also threw this in there or not. Arch Manning also had 92 carries for 399 and 10 rushing touchdowns as well last year.
That's true. That's true.
He just, I'm happy to see that he has weapons returning, and they got deeper all the way around the position room. It sounds like. I think they come out the gate. And he looks I think this is so. Okay, last year coming out, from an Ohio State fan, right? Let's talk about it. The expectations were you're going to see this kid coming out, and he's going to do some things, and he's going to look the part. And I think you see that this year. I think you see Arch come out this year, and he looks the part, and he's the quarterback that you want to start seeing, right? You started to see at the end of the season last year. He was making the 50-yard, in stride passes down the field. He was making the, tucking the ball, running it. Heck, he had a 60-yard long. We talked about it being all centric on what he does and his confidence. And I think his confidence is going to be an all-time high. I've told this to you guys. I feel like there's a weird, still quietness coming from down there that you're not really hearing like you did last year, with all the Manning hype. And I think Sarkisian's been really good about keeping this team kind of under wraps and kind of doing their own thing. And I think it's going to bode well for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Steve, did you have anything to add, or can I continue in regards to the offense?
I was just gonna say, one thing unless I missed it, somebody didn't mention he didn't just have rushing and passing touchdowns. He even had a receiving touchdown, becoming the only quarterback in Texas history to have a passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown in a single game.
Yeah, that's definitely true. He's the only quarterback that's done that. So very, 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 very true. So it's going to be very interesting what this season brings when it comes to Arch Manning. Let's break down his weapons a little bit more, though, right? Texas struggled to consistently establish the run in SEC play during the stretches of 2025. That was one of their biggest issues. They didn't run the ball as well as they did in 2024. I would argue that the 2024 offense, in my opinion, at times was a lot better than this 2025 season. 2025 season that we just previously saw. Let alone, even though Arch Manning had a hot streak in the last 7 games, right? It wasn't as explosive at times than the year prior. So that being said, veteran back Relique Brown and Hollywood Smothers are expected to lead the rotation, while 5-star freshman Derek Cooper arrives as one of the most physically gifted backs Texas has had signed in years, right? Cooper brings a rare combination of acceleration and receiving ability. That's what people have said about him. Several recruiting analysts have even compared him to an NFL caliber SEC running back because of his ability to play all 3 downs. So he's an every down back. So that's going to be really interesting. Another player that's generating buzz is Michael Terry III. He was originally recruited as an athlete. They've continued to expand his offensive role. He's around 220 pounds, and he can line up at running back, receiver, H-back, or even a motion weapon. He can be that Swiss Army knife in the running back room. So it is going to be very interesting what they do with these running backs. Any thoughts on the running backs, Mystic?
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be a huge part to focus on having a guy lead the room with 597 yards pretty much led to them also struggling in the red zone, where they were like 63rd in the nation. Like, just not looking good. Bringing in guys that are going to help amp that up helps. And we talked about, you said it earlier, Wingo's coming back. You can tell that Arch Manning and him have a really good connection, because you can tell that he targeted him because he almost 850 yards last year. So it's like, I think you'll see more of that emergence. I think Wingo will probably become the top target from Manning. But yeah, getting that running game, we all know it. The easiest way to help your quarterback is have a run game. And the fact that they couldn't really run the ball when they needed to get the offense going, and they had to rely more on their quarterback to make plays, and easier to put pressure on him. I expect that to change.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I do expect it to change. I kind of, one of the issues that I had with Arch Manning last year is, though he had the weapons, they had this leash on him, and I think they just need to cut the cord and just let him go. And I think that you're going to see him develop, and I kind of think they did it later in the season, just not soon enough. It was a game or so too late when they got started with it. Let's talk about the wide receivers a little bit. This could be Texas's deepest receiver room since Vince Young era. Not kidding. Ryan Wingo enters the season as the unquestionable number one option. His combination of size, speed, route running makes him one of the best receivers in the SEC. Behind him, Texas added former Auburn star Cam Coleman, one of the biggest transfer portal additions in the nation. Coleman gives Manning another elite outside target, dramatically raises the offensive ceiling. I've already mentioned some of the other depth pieces that they've already had. I mentioned Emmett Mosley, Khalil Lockett, Michael Terry, Cohen Brown, Chris Stewart, Jermaine Bishop Jr. is another name to watch out for. Khalil Lockett may be the most important name to watch. Coaches have been extremely high on his development, and many inside program believe he is a future star. So that will be someone to definitely watch out for. Steve, you want to finish it off for the wide receiver room? Any other additional thoughts?
Yeah, they actually added two young studs to that room too, especially a recruit out of New Orleans named Easton Royal, who's a top 10 national prospect, the number 2 wide receiver in the country. Ran a 10:30 100 meter and a 21.32 200 meter. He's known for his ability to generate yards after the catch. I think he's going to be, because I guess and I don't want people to overthink what I'm about to say, but Texas runs a West Coast system. They specifically run the West Coast system, a very similar version to the Shanahan system, right? I think they could use this kid a lot like Debo, and just his ability to be multiple, not just a boundary or a slot receiver. And then they also brought in Bredesen Thrower from Texas, North Fortney, Texas, another big body, 6'3" wide receiver. So they definitely gave him the weapons that I think he wasn't missing, obviously, but to become that high flying offense and maybe be more explosive than they were able to be last year.
Yeah, definitely. 100% I agree with that. But there's one big question about this offense that we need to talk about. Is the offensive line enough, right? This remains the biggest question mark on the offense. The line returns important pieces such as Trevor Gooseby, Brandon Barker, and Connor Robinson. Gooseby in particular is viewed by some evaluators as a future first-round NFL draft pick due to his size and his athleticism and finishing ability. The challenge is replacing departed veterans while improving physicality, right? Texas is not the dominant. Texas was not dominant in the short yardage game situations during the portions of 2025, and Sarkisian has emphasized becoming more efficient in the run game. I mentioned it before. They have an issue at the run game. They need to fix it. They need to become more physical and everything. And that was one of their key pieces they were missing. So that is going to be a big question. Mystic, any thoughts on the offensive line?
This is pretty crazy. So they have 3 returning guys that that they're expecting their former right tackle to kick inside to right guard so that one of their experienced transfers can be a right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? So the projected 5 that, from what I'm seeing, is what? Trevor Gooseby, Lawrence Seymour, Connor Robertson, Brandon Baker, and Melvin Ciani. Combined, it says they have over 5,700 combined career snaps. The high impact potentially from this left guard, I guess he got granted eligibility. Their center is a 5th-year senior. I mean, you pretty much have what you need when it comes to experience. It's can they perform in the scheme? I would say I have no question that there's veterans and that they should be able to lean on each other through, if there's any learning curves, but I think they should hit the ground running. This is definitely a tenured group of guys they threw together here who've played a lot of college football.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. It is a lot of college football. We'll definitely have to see, how they gel together and how quickly they can reinforce the offensive line, but stay with that physicality that they need to bring in. Steve, what are your thoughts on the offensive line?
So they even went a little step further. They went and got Nicholas Robinson, who is a 4-star recruit, to try and add additional depth. I mean, he's another good sized offensive lineman. Rather, he's going to play tackle or guard. But Melvin Ciani, which I believe is how you say his name, was a 4-star transfer from Wake Forest, 6'6", 313. Like uh, he brings some power. So I don't think there's going to be as much of a worry with that offensive line as I think some are thinking. They brought in some more, pardon the comment, but meat for that offensive line to protect him and give him some time to throw that ball to these new weapons.
Definitely. It's going to be very interesting. I think that's the one thing I'm going to be watching is that offensive line, and are they able to create those lanes for those running backs to get that running game going? Because I think that's really the one thing that was lacking the most last season when it came to the Texas Longhorns. Let's keep going. We're going to go ahead and hit the defense. While Arch Manning receives most of the headlines, really, the defense may actually determine whether Texas can win a national championship or not. The Longhorns return several elite defenders and add one of the most intriguing new coaching combinations in college football with Will Muschamp, who's helping lead the defense. Right, the expectation is more aggressive, pressure-oriented system that maximizes Texas's speed and athleticism. Right, they want to take advantage of their traits. The defensive line, the entire defense starts with Colin Simmons. Simmons is already viewed as one of the best edge rushers in America and enters 2026 as a potential first-team All-American. After emerging as SEC sack leader candidate and one of the nation's most disruptive defenders, Simmons has developed into the player offenses must account for on every snap. Right? He's become that kind of a guy. What makes Texas dangerous is that Simmons may finally have consistent help. You got guys like Lance Jackson, who's generated significant offseason buzz and is projected to start opposite of Simmons. His emergence could prevent offenses from simply sliding protections towards Simmons. So you're not going to necessarily be able to double up Simmons every time because of Lance Jackson. But if Jackson develops into a reliable pass rush threat, Texas front becomes significantly more dangerous, right? You can rely heavily on guys like Hero Kanu, former Buckeye, Alex January, Justice Terry, and Myron Charles, right? Those are some of the names that you can really rely on. The coaching staff believes Justice Terry has a future all SEC potential. At his size, athletic profile, he possesses the ability to become the next dominant Texas interior defensive lineman. That'll be very interesting if he lives up to the part. What do you guys think of the defensive line and the defense in whole so far? Mystic or Steve or anyone?
Oh, Mystic must be busy.
You guys hear me?
Hey,
I can
nope,
hear you
now we do.
Dude, oh my god. I'm so tired of my internet, dude. You guys just froze so hardcore. Okay, so I know we're talking about the defense here. That's all I know. I don't really know what all he said, but I know that we
What are
hit
your thoughts about the defensive line? Let's talk about that and the overall defense as a whole.
I think they need to be more impactful, personally. I think they need to show up in these bigger games. I mean, you're talking, they played Vanderbilt and it was 34-31. And Arch Manning threw for 300 and almost 30 yards and 3 touchdowns, and then he barely got the game won by 3 points. Defensive line needs to be impactful. They need to generate some, a rush, get a turnover, maybe just more sacks, right? Maybe the things of that such. I don't think the defense supported that offense as much as you want when you talk about the 3 stages in football. So that's where I'll start my synopsis of this defense.
All right. Steve, what did you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, they lost, and you can remind me because, as I've stated, I'm terrible at names. They lost their star defensive tackle that was the biggest help for their edge rushing group last year to the draft. So they're gonna need this depth and some of these transfers they brought in to really pick up the slack. They brought in 2 edge rushers, including a kid who apparently runs a 4.6 40, but he's very raw, and they're gonna have to develop him. So I don't know if he'll be any help this year. But if they can get him on like a pass rushing downs and just having him going after the quarterback, it's gonna help their star edge to get him going as well. So kid's name's Cameron Hall. He's an edge out of Arlington, Texas. They brought in a couple kids. I mean, he was a top 300 national prospect. They brought in another kid named Derwin Fields from Brookhaven. He's a top 200 and another explosive pass rusher. So they brought in some guys. It's just they got to mesh that front 7 together with that defensive line depth, keep guys fresh, and just keep having them attack.
Yeah, I definitely agree. In another room that's going to be very interesting, and to be honest, I think they're very deep in this room, so it's going to be interesting who the next dominant guy is. But that's the linebacker room, right? Texas returns experienced contributors while adding elite recruiting talent. Players expected to contribute immediately: Rasheem Biles, Brad Spence, Ty Anthony Smith, Rocky Cummings, or Tyler Atkinson. The name to watch is Tyler Atkinson. He's one of the premier linebacker recruits in America. Atkinson arrives with elite instincts, sideline to sideline speed, and advanced football intelligence. Many recruiting analysts believe he is one of the safest defensive prospects in the entire 2026 class. Listen, they had a guy named Anthony Hill Jr., who, in my opinion, was one hell of a tackler. And to be honest, I would love to have him in my backfield, right? Can he come in and fill in that kind of shoes? Maybe one of these guys can. Maybe Biles can do that. But I am kind of really interested to see what Atkinson can become. Those are my thoughts on this defense when it comes to the linebacker core. Any thoughts on the linebacker core that they brought in and some of the names I mentioned?
I mean, getting a 5-star recruit at linebacker who's going to be a true freshman is going to be real fun to watch. That's going to be exciting. I mean, Atkinson's the guy that you're talking about, like 5-star true freshman. I'm okay. Sign me up. I'm ready to see something like that. That's a guy that absolutely has the ability to fill that role you're just talking about. I think just looking at what kind of some things they got, some transfers. I think they might have got bigger, physical, added some more depth. Like I think this might be the unit that you could see carry this defense this season would be the linebackers. I think it's very possible.
Very, very possible. What do you think, Steve?
So I have to correct myself, and I feel stupid because of who, and you'll understand why. It wasn't a defensive tackle. I was thinking about the edge rusher Trey Moore, who
Mm,
just so happens to be, you know,
Yep.
yeah. So, yeah, they lost him. He was floating between linebacker and edge. There were times where he played the mic, and you actually mentioned something about a player, Ty Anthony Smith, who's now taking over as the mic.
yeah.
So that it's a new decor defensive coordinator, you said, with a new mic. So that's something they're gonna have to figure out real quick. And I like their linebacker room. I mean, like I said, it's a new mic, but they got some fresh bodies in there. They got some veterans still in there that were there last year. Uh, they're bringing in guys who I think could play some Sam roll, some things like that will float between the linebackers and the defensive line to help out the defensive line. So I actually like their linebacker room, and I'm interested to see how Ty Anthony plays as a Mike.
Yeah, I am kind of interested to see what happens there as well. I kind of like what I'm reading about Tyler Atkinson. That's some of what we're going to come back to and talk more about when we talk about recruiting later on in this episode. But the secondary, right? The secondary is going to be deep again. They just lost what's his name, Malik Mohammed, their star corner. It's another season, but I think they have a chance to be one of the better secondaries in the SEC with guys like Kobe Black. You got former elite recruits like Cade Phillips, Grayson Littleton, Samari Matthews, Jelani McDonald give Texas tremendous versatility on the back end. The coaching staff has prioritized recruiting bigger defensive backs capable of matching up with SEC receivers. And that philosophy is beginning to show up on their depth chart, right? So a lot of these guys are pretty much bigger defensive backs. The secondary's biggest challenge will be replacing departed experience while maintaining consistency. They didn't just lose one of their starting corners; they lost one of their starting safeties, right? What's his name? Steve, correct me. Is it Traff or Trafe? Is how you say it? I'm not sure. I know he's a Dolphin now, but from what I understand, he has a lot of football intelligence and leadership. And when you lose leadership and football intelligence in the secondary, those holes can show up. You can be the fastest guy, but you don't necessarily know where you need to be or where you need to support on any given moment, right? Losing a guy like that safety that they lost can be an issue. They just bring someone else, or do they have someone else in the room that's going to fit the bill? What do you think, Mystic?
It's hard to replace a locker room leader. And that's why I said what I said about the linebackers. I think you're going to have a linebacker who's going to stand up and be the leader. It's going to help lead the team. Replacing that many secondary guys, because I'm pretty sure, didn't Jade Barron, isn't he gone too as well? I'm pretty sure he's gone. So Malik
That was
Muhammad's
the year
gone.
before.
That was the year
Yeah.
prior.
So the year prior. So they lost him the year before. They lost Malik this year, and I believe it was Michael Taft, right?
They
Steve?
lost this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
That secondary over 2 years has gotten good. So I'll be very surprised. I wouldn't say surprised. I'm curious to see how it responds, but I think it's going to be one of the younger Obviously, it is the younger room, but I'd say you'll see more like growth moments. I think from that room, I think they're going to have their shortcomings. Maybe they have a slow start to their season, right? But I do again. I think I still go with I think the linebackers are going to really help this defense at times when you need a stop or something crazy, because the red zone in short yardage situations, third down is where they struggled last year. So I expect those units to really tighten that up.
Interesting. Go ahead, Steve. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Michael Taff. I was gonna echo what Mystic said and kind of what you said about leadership, right? Like we heard it from Jade Barron's own mouth about how important of a leader that Michael Taff was, even though he's not the biggest safety. Like much like another safety, and I'm not trying to talk about the Dolphins, but Dante Trader when he was at Maryland, like th- they're not the biggest safeties, but when you're a leader like those guys are, they impact the team in different ways. So they do. Now, that being said, they do have a veteran in Xavier. I'm gonna butcher his last name, Philisame, I think is how you say it. He's been grooming behind Michael Taft, and maybe he can fill that role. But also remember, like Michael Taft, he didn't just he didn't just win that job because he was some big recruit. If I remember correctly, he was a walk on at Texas. That remember that comment I made last week about being desirable, making yourself undeniable. That's
Mhm.
what Taft did. He fought, cut, clawed, scratched, and made his way onto that roster. And sometimes those guys are more important than those 5-star recruits you bring in because it shows that you put in the work. You can earn what you want, and it makes those guys on the bottom half of the roster work harder to get there. So we'll see if this safety room with these two veterans in there can shore up what Taft left behind.
Let's also not forget, Michael Taff was a walk-on on Texas. Now, granted, he could have went to another big program. He had offers from Auburn and other schools, but he wanted to be a Texas Longhorn that bad. He was willing to become a walk-on. And actually, I want to say he didn't get his scholarship until what? His sophomore or junior season, something like that.
Yep.
Something to that effect. So being a guy walking onto an SEC team as a walk-on, that's pretty impressive. It'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to walk on.
And then winning the starting job and being a locker room leader on top of it.
Yeah, that's the biggest storyline there. But yeah, this defense is going to be really interesting. Can't wait to see it in action. You know, we've talked about the offense, we talked about the defense. Let's talk about something that doesn't get talked about a lot, and it's the hard work that these programs do to make sure that they have the talent, right? We're going to talk about how the reinforcements are on the way. Steve's kind of talked about recruiting throughout this episode, but I'm going to kind of break it down. What separates Texas from most programs is the Longhorns are no longer just recruiting to fill holes. They're starting to recruit to build waves of NFL talent, right? A lot of teams are doing this now, not just Texas, just to be fair. The most impactful newcomers include Derek Cooper, which I mentioned earlier, Dia Bell. I'm kind of excited to see what he becomes after the Manning era is over with, obviously. Tyler Atkinson, I mentioned him. I'm still thinking that's a guy to watch out for. He could definitely be that immediate impact player automatically. Michael Terry, offensive chess piece. Khalil Lockett, he could have a breakout season. Justin Terry, future anchor of the defensive front, possibly. Samari Matthews, DB, long, physical defensive back with SEC traits. I'm telling you right now, their recruiting is, it seems like it's like a slow start. Like right now in 2027, they have like the 27th ranked. For 2027, they have like the 27th ranked recruiting class so far, right? But they always find ways to bring in that talent. Let it be recruiting, transfer portal. I mentioned the speed, the strength, the athleticism that they brought in. They really know what they're doing in that recruiting program. Any thoughts on the recruiting or some of the names I mentioned, Mystic?
Honestly, I'm gonna refer to you and Steve on the recruiting side of things here.
All right, so he's referring to us, Steve. I guess he doesn't want to be known as the expert. What do you got, Steve? What do you think?
They also brought in Richard Wesley, which is another one of those edge rushers, a 4-star. He committed. He was supposed to be in the 2027 class, but I guess somehow morphed his way into the 2026 recruiting class.
Oh
So
yeah.
they definitely and then like I said, like you kind of said, I brought up quite a few of the guys that they had coming in as youngsters. They brought in some starter caliber players, but mainly a lot of guys to develop and really get on this field and play. And in short bursts might do them a lot of good for rotation. I like their recruiting class. Depending on who you talk to, it's better than most colleges. It just depends on who you talk to.
I mean, there's even a running back I think they got, and I can't remember if I talked about him when I was talking about running backs, but God, what is his name? Jermaine Bishop. Did I mention Bishop earlier? I may have.
No, you
Jermaine.
didn't.
No.
No, okay. Well, Jermaine Bishop is a 5-star talent running back that they got, I think, in 2026, from what I saw. And there's stuff I read about him that he has extensive experience at like wideout, running back, even at safety. I've heard that he can play. Notice he's very surprisingly strong, capable of stacking cuts, stringing moves to maximize touches. It is very interesting, right? What this guy can do. He eclipsed over 5,000 scrimmage yards. That is insane production, right? So they definitely are able to bring in talent like crazy. It's going to be kind of exciting, and not just for this season, but for the seasons to come at Texas. Sarkisian's doing a great job. I really think he's really turned the entire Texas program around since he's taken over. What else did you guys have about recruiting? Did you have anything you wanted to add, Mystic? Or
Did we talk about Derek Cooper?
I mentioned his name.
So he was one of the top running backs in the looks like the 26 recruiting class, and I guess he's drawing comparisons to Bijan Robinson for his physical build and receiving upside. So that's very interesting. But it looks like they have quite a few guys. So if you see him,
Speaking of
with
which,
the ball,
I'm sorry. Speaking of which, you know where Derek Cooper's from, right?
no, where's he from?
South Florida, Hollywood.
Oh,
Went to Charminade Madonna.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, they got
So
two transfers. They got a guy from Arizona State, a guy from NC State. Like they definitely have a very big running back room now. And so Ryan Niblett used to be a return man, wide receiver for them, and they transitioned him to running back as well. And I guess he's gotten some first team reps here, throughout the process. So something just to pay attention to.
yeah, something I mentioned in the last episode when we broke down the Hurricanes, I talked about how Miami emphasized 2 different position groups primarily in the recruiting game. It was primarily the trenches. It was all about the trenches. Defensive line, offensive line. That's where they recruited the hell out of players and signed the most players in both those positions. Texas, on the other hand, granted, they have one of the biggest NIL programs in the country next to Ohio State, Miami, and some of these other schools. But they don't just recruit in one position primarily, or 2 singular positions. They recruit more balanced, across the board. I want to say their biggest amount of players that they brought in for 2026, to be honest, I want to say was in the defensive line group. They had 5 people recruited that they signed in that position group, right? whereas everywhere else maybe only had one or two people, right, in any other position. So it's just really interesting what they're doing. They're a little bit more balanced versus other schools. It's also really interesting where they brought the most of their talent. 90% of their commits are from Texas. Outside of Texas, it's either California or Florida. Beyond that, maybe a guy from Michigan or Louisiana or North Carolina, somewhere around there, right? So it's really interesting where their most of their talent comes from. Obviously, you expect teams like Miami and Texas to get most of their talent from their host state, obviously. But it's really interesting on how the areas that they recruit from and how balanced it is when it comes to the numbers of recruits they signed in every position. So I just wanted to pinpoint that out real quick. But my final outlook. So what is the final outlook on the on Texas, right? Texas enters the 2026 with arguably the most talented roster Steve Sarkisian has assembled. Maybe I would say this is one of the deepest for sure. The offense features Heisman caliber quarterback and Arch Manning, elite receivers led by Ryan Wingo and Cam Coleman, an upgraded backfield featuring Raleek Brown, Hollywood Smothers, Derek Cooper, and more. Defensively, Colin Simmons leads the unit with future NFL talent at every level, right? That linebacker group is one of the deepest. The offensive line develops into an upper tier SEC unit, and the young defensive tackles mature quickly, right? If that happens, Texas has the talent to win the SEC and compete for a national championship. On paper, this is one of the most talented teams, like I just mentioned, right? But it's really going to come down to that offensive line establishing the run and how quickly that defense can click. I think if that happens, then you're going to start seeing maybe an 11-1 team, or higher. Maybe they win their SEC championship and they're contending for a championship altogether, the national championship. But I definitely think that this is one of my safest teams to make the college football playoff this season. But, and this is the big but, you guys are going to love this. One thing that is going to really set the tone, it's a banger already, because the game 2 in the 2026 season, it's week 2, Ohio State versus Texas, right?
September 12th.
What was that again? Say that again.
On September 12th.
Yeah, on September 12th. And it's going to be a primetime game. If you remember last year, there was some hoopla about how Ohio State wanted their game to be a primetime game, but Texas wouldn't change up what they wanted to do. And we saw how that game turned out. Number 1 versus number 2. That was a banger. It was a banger. And I think this one could definitely be a banger. Will it be in Texas? Will Texas win it? Will Ohio State show up and, will they be able to, be this kind of a Buckeye team? I don't know. Maybe they show up to put the Longhorns down. I don't know. We'll find out what happens. What I will say, though, I think either way, Texas is going to come to bring it this season. They're definitely a team to watch. I don't think they have the same outcome this year that happened last year. That's what I'll say. Those are my final thoughts on Texas. Mystic, what are your final thoughts on this Texas team?
Man, oh man. I'm so glad that you brought up that Ohio State game. This team leaves the state of Texas once in the first 2 months of the season. And it's not to go to Ohio State. They leave to go to Tennessee on September 26th. So this team really doesn't leave. They're home cooking pretty much the whole season. Like, there is no excuse for this team not to take care of business throughout the course of this. I mean, you even got, Oklahoma. Yeah, it's at the Cotton Bowl, but still, they're in Texas. And then you have Florida coming to Austin. You have Ole Miss coming to Austin. You got Mississippi State coming to Austin. Like Arkansas, like there is no excuse. I mean, again, I expect a different team this year. I expect a different Texas team. I expect a different Arch Manning. I could see them taking that week 2 game very personally from last year, and it's going to be one of those high stakes, potential revenge games for Texas, and if they can take care of it and pop out 2-0 after, potentially taking out Ohio State, man, that would be crazy. A lot of people do, from what I was reading, people think a 10-2, 11-1 record, if not more, if they can obviously beat Ohio State early. Very, very possible, and an expected berth in the college football playoff. So that's where I'm at. I do think they should make it this year. No excuse.
Yeah, I think they definitely have a roster that can contend in the SEC and maybe even the national championship. What I'll say is this: 3 out of the 5 first games that they have to play, 3 out of the first 5 are really going to be test games. You have Ohio State. Regardless of what you think of Tennessee, they always play big early. Every year, in the beginning of the season, like SEC fashion, they play big. And then you got to go to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a game. Regardless of what you think of Oklahoma or, what they've done over the past couple seasons, they still know how to put up a game. It's going to definitely be a test. But yeah, what are your final thoughts, Steve?
So you talked about the 5. I'm looking at Ole Miss 2 games after Oklahoma, and then LSU and Texas A&M. Like, they got some slug fights they're gonna have to figure out. Mystic said something about what he expects. He expects a different Arch Manning this year. I don't expect a different Arch Manning. I expect the Arch Manning we got in the final 6 games of the year. I expect that. That's what we were promised. That's what everybody was talking about. Oh, Ewers is only playing because he's the vet in the room. Oh, Arch is the savior. What he did in the back half of that stretch of the year, that's what we were promised, and that's my expectations. You're going to throw the name Manning around. That's what I expect. Just one of the best quarterbacks in all of college sports. And that's what he was those final 6 games. If he plays like that and they don't make the playoffs, that team collapsed around him in epic proportions. If he plays like that, they are, in my opinion, a shoe-in with what weapons and what that defense could look like. They are a shoe-in for that college playoffs. And if they don't get in, I'm going to have some serious questions for somebody.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. It is going to be a banger of a season. I can't wait. But let's get into our final thoughts of this episode. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you're brand new, turn on the notification bell. This is an exclusive episode. This is episode number 2 exclusive episode on 4th and 10. You can only find it there, right? So make sure you subscribe. If you're brand new, we're going to be putting out our Tuesday shows like normal, but every week we want to try to put out another breakdown. Listen, this season is going to be banging, right? There's a lot of teams that are much more improved than they were the year before. They have better athletes, faster, bigger, stronger. It's going to be really interesting. With Texas, Sarkisian has to learn to let Arch go, right? Take the leash off. You can't have the same production and hold the man on a leash at its tightest moment, right? You need to let that man be himself, and he can perform. He showed that to you in the last 6, maybe even 7 games of last season. So those are my final thoughts on Texas. I think they end up bouncing back and making a hell of a run and being a name that's definitely going to be argued to be in the college football playoff this year. I mentioned about how they got screwed, right? So I want to finish with that. How did Texas get screwed? I'm sorry. Texas went what? They were during the season, they finished at 10-2, right? That's what they finished with, 10-2. The same style, Ohio State finished their season, what, 10-2 as well, losing to both Oregon and Michigan, right? And they get into the college football playoff and was able to make a run. Texas, I would argue, way more deserving than teams like Alabama, more deserving than teams like who was in there? Tulane, I think, was one of the teams that was in it, right? Who else? Who was in the college football playoff?
James Madison.
James Madison, right? These teams, way better, more deserving than those teams. It's kind of ridiculous that you have a team that is full of athletes, has the program, has the star quarterback, right? Has the coach, right? Played among some of the best, and still gets niched for the playoffs, right? I would argue that maybe the only loss that really meant anything, to be honest, when it comes down to it, is the Florida game. That's what hurt them the most. They don't lose to Florida, they're in the playoffs, no questions asked, right? I would have really liked to see what Texas would have done had they been in this past year's college football playoffs. So I'm excited for Texas. I really want to see what they do and see how it goes. What are your final thoughts, Mystic?
I'm kind of, oh man, it's interesting thing. And first to clarify, yeah, I'm exactly where Steve's at. Like when I say that's what I expect different, I expect a consistent whole season from Manning, not 6 games, 7 games, right? Man, this team has a chance to do some good things this year. I'm not happy to say that because I'm not necessarily a huge Longhorns fan, but if I'm being unbiased and I'm looking at what this team is and what their roster is and where they're at, I mean, they absolutely have a good strength of schedule. I think even potentially, I think a 10-3 gets them in this year just because of how brutal their schedule is, right? But I also think that this team has the ability to shock some people, and be one of the better college teams in all of college football this year. We'll see if that's the case, but again, I can't wait to see the Arch Manning that we want to see the whole season, so that we can have some serious conversation with some people out there. They know who they are, right?
Definitely, absolutely. Steve, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I just echo a little bit of what I was just talking about, right? Like this team has a lot of talent. I'm super high on Cam Coleman, right? I know they have their true number one there already, but I think we might be having a different conversation later in the year about who truly went off in that offense. I think he was kind of held back at Auburn. That's kind of my opinion. I think he's going to fit well in this West Coast system. Yeah, a true gun-slinging, arm-throwing, missile-driving quarterback. If he plays, like I said, if he plays like he did, if Manning plays like he did at the end of the year last year, like these wide receivers are going to go off, and we might have the greatest horns on turf. Like they have that potential with what's on the roster. So
I like what you said there. I like that catchphrase, greatest horns on turf. I like it.
yeah, so we'll see. They're either going to hook something or they're gonna get hooked. So I still think they got some stuff to prove, but they got a lot of talent to prove it in the SEC.
Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. Any other thoughts before we close up shop?
No, sir. Thanks everyone for taking the time to check the episode out. We appreciate you guys.
Definitely, 100%. Listen, everyone hit the like button, subscribe if you're brand new. We're talking about Texas. Is it hook'em time or is it fold'em time? That's what we're talking about in this episode. Stay tuned for the next exclusive episode. Who we're going to break down. Is it going to be Alabama? Is it going to be Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, maybe? Who do we break down? We'll talk to you guys soon. Till next time.